In Newcastle, per pupil funding has gone down by £240 per head since 2010. Does he recognise that someone like me who grew up on free school meals and went to a state school, that the capacity of those who have lower incomes to do well when funding cuts are made is less, and that the resources of parents, the pressure put on parents to make up for those funding cuts is higher and cannot be met?
Yes, and I've already said so. We would all recognise that there are areas of the country where the needs are much greater and the spending needs are therefore greater too. The point I'm making is that I think all schools need a basic minimum. And in the last couple of years, West Sussex schools and some of the schools in my constituency have struggled to make ends meet because that minimum hasn't been reached. And since their funding was at the lowest level per pupil anyway across the whole country, it's much harder for them to make savings. In arguing for the national funding formula, we never sought to take money away from other schools. What we wanted was fair funding for our area, and it is much harder to introduce a national funding formula in an environment where spending isn't rising very sharply. I would just make a couple of points finally. In the last budget, there were a number of areas in relation to public services that benefited considerably from big increases in spending, notably, of course, the National Health Service. There was also additional money for defence and for social care. Resources are finite, and any government has to make a choice about how it's going to allocate resources going forward. That's exactly what the spending review will be about. But I think that there is a case to be made for ensuring that the education budget does not fall in real terms, even if those falls are actually not quite as catastrophic as has been made out. Spending per pupil is actually the highest in the UK of any G7 country for primary and secondary schools. But if adjustments are allowed to happen where budgets which are already tight receive less money, the only way that a lot of these schools can make savings is by losing people, and that's not something that we want.